This week, we're talking about giving yourself permission.
You are listening to Love Your Job Before You Leave It, the podcast for ambitious, high-achieving women who are ready to stop feeling stressed about work and kiss burnout goodbye forever. Whether you're starting a business or staying in your day job, this show will give you the coaching and guidance you need to start loving your work today. Here's your host, career coach Corey Lynn.
Hey, y'all. Hello. Happy Wednesday. I'm having a lovely day. It's sunny here. I was sitting in the window earlier, just feeling the sun through the glass. It's not so warm that I had the window open and just it's so delightful. I love this time of year when the days are starting to get longer again and we're getting more sunshine. And I realize I live in Sacramento, California, so that's what we're having here. And y'all might not be having it, but I hope that you're getting some delightful weather wherever you are. Also, I had a delicious bowl of peanut butter cereal right before recording this, and that just makes me so happy. It's such a tiny little thing, but such a treat, and reminds me of childhood because I loved peanut butter cereal as a kid too. Okay, before we get into today's topic, I want to tell y'all about a client win. So today we are celebrating one of my clients who is, in general, doing amazing, but also has done a few really cool things lately that I want to tell you about. So this client is 42 years old. They've been married for 12 years. They've been with their significant other for 16 years. And they decided that they wanted to have a postnup. So they made one. Now, you may be wondering, what's a postnup? And a postnup is basically like a prenup, but instead of happening before you get married, it happens after you already are married. And I think that this is so powerful because I think it's such a rare thing that someone would realize they want this and then, go through kind of the discomfort and the effort of having that conversation with their significant other and ironing out all the details and getting with a lawyer and making it happen. So I think it's extremely powerful that this client decided that that was something they wanted and then they made it happen. So also in the course of doing this postnup, my client had to take a look at their net worth. And so what they figured out is that they're actually a multimillionaire and they didn't know that, which you might be like, how would you not know? But a lot of times people are so uncomfortable with finances and money that they won't actually look at their finances in detail and they don't actually necessarily have a clear picture of where they are. And I'm not saying that's the case for this client in particular. I think it can also be complex and involve more math than people realize off the top of their head to calculate net worth. But I think a lot of people kind of don't know their numbers. And so doing something like a prenup or a postnup can actually sort of force your hand for you to go look at your numbers. And so when I was talking to this client about it, they were saying in the last 10 years, they've gone from zero net worth to 3.5 million in net worth. So that's sort of insane. And I think that's such a great example for y'all too, that a lot can change and a lot can change actually in a short time period. And if you have dreams and goals that seem sort of insane to you right now, or how could that ever be possible? They probably are possible. And it's probably possible they could happen in the next 10 years. And they could even happen without you really even being aware that they happen until you stop to kind of take account of where you are and take account of all the things you have going on. I also just love this because I think so many people would be so afraid to, have a conversation with their significant other, especially inside of a marriage, about setting up a postnup. I think it's the kind of thing that most people could imagine having a big fight about, or how dare someone ask for that. But really it's just an agreement. And I love that my client, overcame discomfort and overcame inertia and overcame probably lots of other obstacles, and spent time and spent money and spent mental bandwidth to make this a reality for themselves because it's something that they really wanted. And I think it's really incredible. And it kind of bridges into what I want to talk about today, which is giving yourself permission, and specifically giving yourself permission to do more than other people, giving yourself permission to do less than other people, and giving yourself permission to do things differently than other people. So I think the postnup is a good example of giving yourself permission to do things differently and giving yourself permission to do something that societally we might have certain narratives around, but you get to define your own narrative instead and have your own reasons for doing the thing. And then I think a lot of times coaching is a tool that we all use when we're thinking about doing more, having really big, wild, audacious goals and going after really big things, getting a huge raise or like switching industries or like, starting a business, doing something that we've never done before. And I think that's really magical. And I definitely think it's something we can use coaching to accomplish. And it's something I've personally used coaching to accomplish, like a lot of different goals in my life that would be, I think, under the category of doing more. But I also think it's really interesting to think about using coaching to do less. I was on TikTok the other day because I love TikTok and I'm on there a lot, honestly. And I saw this TikTok where I don't remember the account, so I'm sorry. And if someone knows, tell me. But it was two women, and one of the women was saying like, "Oh, I like really want it this year to be the year I break the glass ceiling," like da da da. And the other woman was like, "Oh, I really want this to be the year I break the glass floor." And the other woman was like, "What's the glass floor?" And the woman was like, "Oh, like if you want to like be a CEO and like get into like executive level and all that, like have at it. But what I actually want to be able to do is just like kind of a mediocre, like do my job and like not go above and beyond and like just give myself permission to like actually perform without overperforming." And she didn't say it exactly like that, but like that's how I kind of want to think about it in respect to like what I want to talk about. And I would say actually for some areas of our lives, even giving ourselves permission to like underperform or just not perform at all, to just sort of fucking opt out of certain stuff. And so while I have used coaching to like do that thing, like creating more, like I've used coaching to create a business that's now a multiple 6-figure business. And while I've used coaching to create like this really deeply incredible relationship with my significant other, Alex, and while I've used coaching to create all kinds of other like magical more things, I've also used coaching to create less. I've used coaching to create me working less. Like I don't work in my business 40 hours a week. I don't really want to. And learning how to work less, it doesn't sound like something you would have to learn, right? You're like, learning to work less, you just work less. But for those of us who get sort of like addicted to productivity or obsessed with productivity, or for those of us who have struggled with perfectionism, or for those of us who are used to always doing something, or for those of us who think our worthiness depends on like how busy we are, it can actually be a challenge to let yourself do less and to learn how to be a person who does less without, having a lot of drama about it. And so what the whole point of this podcast is like, what would it be like in your life? What would it be like in your career if you gave yourself permission to do more, permission to do less, and permission to do differently? So like, where in your life are you settling for something that's not as big, bold, beautiful, like boom, boom, boom as what you want? Because like what you have is like kind of like what most people have, or like maybe what you have is like what society standardly considers to be like the good thing, right? So as an example, like I used to work in, corporate tech, and I had a really good job. It was a good job. I had a 401k. I had great coworkers. I had good work-life balance. It was good. It was really good. And I think there is like sort of this societal story of like, I had the thing that people want. I had the good thing. And I gave myself permission to dream bigger and to want something bigger, better, bolder, more boom, 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 more like, than what was like societally sold to me as good enough. Right. And that may be the case for you. Like maybe you have something in your life that everyone's like, oh, that's amazing. And you're just like, I mean, yes, it is, but like, it's not actually what I want. Or maybe you're like, no, I hate it, right? Like, I don't know what's happening inside your head, but maybe there's an area in your life where you want to dream bigger. You want to go after something bigger. Maybe you want to make more money. Maybe you want to have like a bigger friend group. Like, it doesn't just have to be like money and finances and career. It could be like, I don't know, maybe you want to like travel the world for 2 years, like blogging. I don't know what bigger, bolder, more boom, boom, boom means for you. But I bet there's at least one area of your life where you want something bigger than what like society sort of teaches us we're allowed to have. And like you struggle with that and you go back and forth about whether you're going to go after it and whether it's worth it to go after it. And like, what if you fail? How fucking humiliating will that be? And like, no one will understand if you walk away from this thing that's like really, really good, blah, blah, blah. And like that, again, that's the kind of thing we talk about in coaching a lot. But I also wonder, where in your life are you doing something and actually what you want is less? You want to work less Maybe you want to make less money because you want to have, more time, or because you've actually just realized like you just maybe like money is not the thing you want right now. Not that like we always have to like make less money when we work less time. Like I actually make more money and work less time, but I'm just saying like money I think is sort of this thing that we like societally like are just like always like, oh, more is better. But like that doesn't have to be the case for you. Like that could be your boom, boom, big thing and you want like way more money than anyone like can even conceive of. That's possible, but it could be something else. It could be time. It could be like you want to make way more ceramics. You want to like be making pottery like all the time and you want to make like a very large amount of pottery. I don't know. It could be anything, right? So like, oh, actually, here's another good example. Oh no, wait, that's another more one. Oh, I was like, maybe you want to have like a much better relationship than like what you see as like the typical good relationship. But then I was like, oh no, that's still in the more, big, bold, beautiful, boom, boom, boom category. So even like my brain, you can see right now is like going back to like the like, what's like the extra delicious thing. So yeah. So what do you want less of? Like maybe you want to do less overachieving at your job. Maybe you just want to like do enough to be like good enough. Maybe it would like really delight you to learn to be like doing C work at work and not making everything like this like perfectionist thing where you have to get like 105% out of 100. Maybe you want to do less around the house. Like maybe you're tired of like your house being beautiful and perfectly put together all the time because like that's not what you want to like donate your time to. And so maybe you were like, oh, it'd be actually great to just like clean half as often. Maybe there's someone in your life you see a lot of right now that you'd actually like to see less of, like, or not at all of. And so like, where do you want to give yourself permission to go for more? Where do you want to give yourself permission to go for less? Like what activities do you just want to like delete from your life? And what if you gave yourself permission to do that? Because so many of us keep ourselves doing so many things because we're trying to like super overachieve in every category in every way all the time. And I'm like, why? Why are we doing that? And usually it's because we think we have to do that to be good. We have to do that to be okay. We have to do that to be worthy. And so I kind of just want to like introduce you to the idea that like, what if you don't? What if you're allowed to give yourself permission to do less in some areas? I mean, fuck, even in all areas, if you want to, like you're in charge, you're the boss, right? And then where do you want to give yourself permission to do different, right? To do things differently. We've had other podcasts about like living according to like your own design. And I think like that's part of what this is about here. But like, it's also like, oh, people do prenups. I myself didn't even know you could do a post-nup until the client told me about it. But then I was like, oh yeah. So like that would be an example of doing differently. Or like, you're like, oh, everyone's like getting coaching on their career, like getting coaching on their business. Like maybe you want to get coaching on like all those ceramics we just mentioned that maybe you want to make, or like maybe you want to get coaching on some other area that everyone else would just be like, what? Right. And just with this category, it's so interesting because like I almost can't even come up with examples because like my examples are already so informed by culture. So like what would doing it differently mean for you? Oh, here's an example. Like I've been thinking lately about like, do I want to start making my own clothes? Because like when I was younger, I like loved shopping and I like never felt like I actually had the money to go shopping. Now I have the money to go shopping and I don't feel like I really find what I'm looking for. And I have like kind of a strong vision in my head. So would maybe doing it differently for me look like going to like a sewing class instead of going to a store? Or, what other ways could it look like? Or like, maybe, I don't know, like I go to the secondhand store and I'm like finding stuff that I can like tailor or get tailored by somebody else. Like what other ways of doing things that everyone else isn't doing? What other ways are available? Maybe I have to invent some of the ways, right? Like sometimes you want to do things differently and there's nothing there. It's like going down a hallway and there's like no door opening, and maybe you're the one who builds the door opening, and then maybe 20, 30 years from now, a bunch of people do that thing because you invented doing that thing, and none of us even knew about it until you had it. So that one, I think, like I said, it's a little harder to visualize because I don't know what would go there because by definition, it's doing something that like other people aren't necessarily doing or isn't common, right? It's not like no one was doing a post-nup. It's just like not the most common thing. So I just want you to think it through, like for your career, for your relationships, for your health, for your friendships, for your spirituality, for any little topic of life where you're not 100% satisfied, what do you want to give yourself permission to do bigger, bolder, boom, boom, boom? What do you want to give yourself permission to do less of, to just ignore, to delete entirely? And what do you want to give yourself permission to do differently? And what even does that mean? And like, what ideas are in there if you really let go of the ways you've been taught to do things and the ways you've been taught the world works? I'm so excited to see what your beautiful brains come up with when you give yourself this kind of permission to do more, do less, and do differently, both than like what you've been taught and also than what you see in culture. I think you're going to have really brilliant and interesting ideas. And I would just love to invite you to bring them into the world, because I think a lot of people could really have a better experience of their lives, have a more delicious experience, have a more satisfying experience if they gave themselves this kind of permission. And the more you give yourself permission, the more other people are going to see what you're doing and be like, that looks interesting. Maybe I'll try that. It's like the more any of us give ourselves permission, the more we all get permission. So I'm going to give myself permission, and I'm going to do it every day because, you know, the way the brain works, we like forget we have permission. We go back to our old way of doing things. We go back to like, how do other people do it? Or like, you know, what's the acceptable way? So we got to keep giving ourselves the permission all the time, but I'm going to give it to myself. And I want to invite you to give it to yourself in small ways and big ways, and like ways that make total sense and ways that make no sense, in weird ways and like new and surprising ways, and see what magic happens. See what little and big changes you make in your life that make it more delicious for you and that help you get more of that delicious, delicious, yummy, satisfied feeling that we're all about around these parts. All right, that's what I have for you. And if you want a guide to walk you through this exact kind of work, and if you don't want to go it alone because dealing with your own brain can be fucking scary and weird and hard to like make any headway with, you don't have to. And I want to invite you to hop on a consult call with me, and we can talk about working together one-on-one, because I currently have a few spaces for some very lucky new one-on-one clients. And everything we talk about week over week on the podcast is exactly the kind of stuff we'll work on in coaching together, but it'll all be focused on you, on your delicious, satisfying life, on the changes you want to make, on the places you want to give yourself permission to do more, on the places you want to give yourself permission to do less, on the places where you want someone else to brainstorm with you about how you even could do it differently. I know firsthand how hard it can be to self-coach and to work on your brain by yourself all alone. And I just don't want you to think that that's the only way to do it. I think it's so much more fun to do this work with a coach. I think it goes a lot faster. And I think you get really spectacular results because coaches can see your blind spots in ways that you just can't. And so scoot on over to my website and find the link for the consult call, and let's have a conversation about it. All right, that's what I have for you. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Love Your Job Before You Leave It. We'll have another episode for you next week. And in the meantime, if you're feeling super fired up, head on over to CoreyLynn.com for more guidance and resources.